Hello, I'm Shannon Farrell with the OSU Department of Agricultural Economics, and in this part of our video module series from the Environmental Regulatory Compliance Project for Farmers and Ranchers, we're going to talk about environmental management systems. Now, that may sound like something a little bit far-fetched or sophisticated, but it's really simply a methodology that we can use to be a little bit more comprehensive in environmental management for our farm or ranch. And I think what you'll see is if you kind of take some of the environmental management system concepts, embrace those, and make them part of your operation, you'll find not only that you'll have a better time in compliance with environmental regulations, but you might also be able to improve the environmental image of your farm or ranch, and I think that can be something that has benefits not only for your operation itself, but also for the agricultural industry as a whole. Well, what's an environmental management system? Well, quite simply, it's just a comprehensive way of looking at environmental issues on your farm or ranch. You'll see EMS used for large corporations or even industrial operations. And really, when they talk about environmental management systems, they're just trying to figure out a comprehensive way of embracing environmental compliance that enables them to not only be compliant to the minimum standard of the laws, but also to improve their environmental performance and make them a little bit more profitable in the process. When it comes to forming an EMS for your particular operation, really the first step that you've got is forming a commitment to environmental compliance. That's simply something that has to be embraced by management, and that's something that will then be demonstrated to your employees to get them to buy into the process as well. You may also want to set an environmental policy for your company. Not necessarily just that you're going to be environmentally compliant, but that you're going to hold yourself to higher standards of environmental stewardship. Once you've got that commitment and policy in place, then we move to the planning stage, as you can see in the graphic. We're going to create a plan for how our operation is going to become compliant if it's not already. Or if we're going to have a new operation, how will we make sure that new operation is compliant with all of the applicable rules that it needs to follow? Then once we have a plan in place, we actually need to implement or do. We're going to do the things that we set in our environmental plan. And then as those things happen, we're going to take a look back and evaluate, did they work? Did they accomplish the environmental goals that we wanted to achieve? Or did they fall short? Or did we exceed those goals? And how can we do that better? Then once that's done, we go back and review what happened and continue this cycle over and over and over. We plan, then implement, check to see if it was working, and then review and act on that plan again. So this constant feedback cycle that we have really helps us understand, are we moving in the right direction? If not, let's make a correction, try that, and keep moving that cycle over and over again until we see the environmental results for our operation that we want to have. One of the first things that we need to do as we're implementing an EMS for our operation is to determine what our baseline is. What does our property look like now? What do our environmental compliance efforts look like now? And what's our land, water, and air quality? So the first thing that we need to do for our farm or ranch is figure out what information we already know about the area. Not just our own land, but the land surrounding us as well. What's its environmental condition? And how might the condition of neighboring properties affect us as well? That's the next step in the process. It might be that we're being perfectly compliant with our own operation, but there may be water, soil, or air pollution that's coming to us from a neighboring operation, and we need to understand how that impacts us, not only from a compliance standpoint, but just simply from an environmental quality standpoint. Our next step is to collect aerial imagery, which may sound a little bit odd, but what we're trying to do is truly get a literal before and after picture for our operation. And lots of things can be seen from aerial imagery that we just can't see on the ground. So that can actually be a fairly important piece of data for us. Next, as we move a little bit closer from aerial imagery, we'll move to sampling. Sampling of air if necessary, sampling of water, sampling of soil medium, to understand, for example, if it's soil, what are our environmental nutrients and are there any environmental contaminants in the soils? Same thing with waters. Are there any pollutants there that we need to be made aware of, or anything that we could do to improve water quality? And sometimes, even with air sampling, if we've got an operation that generates lots of particulate matter, maybe if we do some processing on our operation, there might be some organic air pollutants that may be emitted, and we need to get a firm grasp on all of those as well. When we're talking about the water medium, it's not just quality that we're worried about, but we may also be worried about quantity. If we're doing a good job of managing our water resources, are we able to maintain or maybe even augment the flow of streams nearby? Are we using too much water? Are we starting to pump down groundwater resources and thus lose flow rates from there? So these are all elements that we can make as part of our environmental baseline. Once we have our EMS plan lined out, we've got our baseline established, then The next thing that we can do is use the handbook resources that we've created as part of this project to help you inventory which environmental programs apply to your operation. Again, if we're starting a new operation, what programs will apply to it down the road? If we have an existing operation that may not be in compliance, and that may be because we've just got an operation that's outside the parameters of that environmental regulation, or maybe that we just didn't know that regulations applied to it. How are we going to get into compliance with that? The Environmental Regulations Handbook will be a useful resource to you to help you put that together and come up with your compliance plan. And once you've got that inventory complete, your baseline, and now you have a compliance plan, now let's use that EMS to see how we're doing with respect to our environmental goals. And once we've achieved those interim environmental goals, do we want to set higher standards for performance? These are all things that, again, are part of that EMS iterative process to make sure that you're constantly improving your environmental stewardship. Our farmers and ranchers are already excellent stewards. Let's see if we can make that even better using EMS. If you have any questions or want more information about any of the topics we've talked about in this module, just go to the AgEcon website. That's agecon.okstate.edu. Click Extension and then go to our Environmental Compliance Handbook resources. Thanks for watching today.